On a wintry day, January 8th, 1902, a well-dressed middle-aged man was searching for a house to rent. He wandered through San Francisco's Sutter Street looking for vacant homes. Eventually, he entered the real estate office of Umsen and Company to inquire about the property at 2211 Sutter Street. The clerk confirmed it was available and discreetly requested references. The man introduced himself as C.B. Hawkins and confessed he had no references, as he and his wife were staying at the Golden West Hotel. To alleviate any concerns about payment, Hawkins offered to pay the first month's rent up front. The clerk, perceiving Hawkins as a businessman, agreed to the rental. After finalizing the transaction, he handed over the receipt and the keys, neglecting to verify Hawkins's registration at the hotel. Had he done so, he would have found that no one named Hawkins was staying there. With a new residence secured, Hawkins realized he needed furnishings. The next day, he visited J.C. Cavanaugh's furniture store at 848 Mission Street. He informed the salesman that he needed a few items for temporary use. He selected 2 pillows, a pair of blankets, a comforter, and a second-hand mattress, making sure to mark his initials on the underside. Although it was late, Hawkins insisted that the mattress and bedding be delivered that night, stating, "No delivery, no sale." The salesman explained that the delivery boy would have to work late to fulfill the request, but Hawkins remained firm. Soon after, the delivery boy arrived at the darkened house at 2211 Sutter Street and rang the doorbell. A man in a top hat answered and instructed him to leave the mattress and bedding in the hallway, which the boy did. Hawkins had additional shopping to complete. On January 10th, he visited the Standard Furniture Company at 745 Mission Street, where he purchased a second-hand bed and an old chair from salesman Richard Fitzgerald. This time, he allowed the delivery man to carry the heavy items up to the second floor and insisted that he assemble the bed as well. On the same day, an advertisement appeared in the San Francisco Chronicle. "Young girl to take care of baby, good home and good wages. Box 120, Chronicle." 15-year-old Nora Fuller, who was seeking work, noticed the ad. Born in China in 1886 to English parents, she had moved to San Francisco with her mother after her father's death. Nora and her younger brother Louis lived with their mother at 1747 Fulton Street. Finances were tight, so Nora discussed the job opportunity with her mother, who agreed to let her respond to the ad right away. Nora sent a note to the specified mailbox indicating her interest in the position. The next day, a postcard arrived. "Miss Fuller, in response to your inquiry regarding my ad, please come to the popular restaurant at 55 Geary Street to see Mr. John Bennett at 1 o'clock. If you can't make it at 1, come at 6. J.B." Unfortunately, the message arrived too late for Nora to get to the restaurant by 1 p.m., but she knew she could still make it by 6 p.m. She quickly got dressed, ate an apple, and her mother gave her money for groceries to buy on her way home from the interview. Nora tucked the postcard with the instructions into her pocket and left the house at 5 p.m. Meanwhile, a customer arrived at the popular restaurant and sat at a table. He had been a patron for about 15 years and was known as Tenderloin because he always ordered a porterhouse steak and only ate the tenderloin part. Half an hour later, growing impatient, he approached the counter and informed the restaurant owner, Mr. F.W. Crone, that he was expecting a young girl and requested to be notified when she arrived. After waiting another half hour, he left his seat, stepped outside, and paced up and down the sidewalk before disappearing. No one ever found out if Nora Fuller made it to her appointment. Shortly after, the phone rang at the Fuller home, and Louis answered. A voice on the other end identified itself as Nora, and that she was at Mr. Bennett's residence, located at 1500 Geary Street. He wanted her to start working right away. While holding the receiver, Louis conveyed the message to his mother in the kitchen. She instructed him to tell his sister to come home and wait until Monday to begin her new job. She also reminded him to ask her to stop by the grocery store for some items. Louis followed his mother's directions. The voice on the other end replied, "All right, tell Mama I'll bring them." That was the last anyone heard from the person believed to be Nora. Unbeknownst to her family, the address Louis had for the Bennett residence, 1500 Geary, was actually a vacant lot. 5 days later, on January 16, 1902, Mrs. Fuller contacted the police, informing them that her daughter had been missing since Saturday. Nora had not been seen or heard from since her job interview in response to the newspaper ad. Mrs. Fuller feared that her daughter had been kidnapped, but the police were skeptical. Given that one of Nora's friends had recently run away, they suspected she might have done the same. They changed their minds about that theory 3 weeks later. It was Mr. H.E. Dean's responsibility to inspect rental properties belonging to Umsen and Company whenever they became vacant. The most recent tenant of 2211 Sutter Street, Mr. Hawkins, had rented the apartment for only a month before leaving. The two-story White House needed cleaning and preparation for a new tenant. On February 8, 1902, Dean approached the littered steps and unlocked the door. As he moved through the first floor, he noticed that all the room doors were open. There was no furniture, and the place felt deserted except for an empty whiskey bottle on the mantel. Dean then climbed the stairs to the second floor. As he inspected the property, he almost overlooked a small room at the back, which was the only one with a closed door. He opened the door to the dimly lit room. The shades were drawn, blocking out the afternoon sun. But there was just enough light to reveal the form of a naked woman lying on the bed with nothing covering her. Sensing something was wrong, he hurried outside and found a policeman on the corner. The officer accompanied Dean back to the house and entered the small room. When he lifted the window shades, they both saw a young girl lying on the bed. Her long dark hair was spread out on the pillow. On the only chair beside the bed were piles of outer garments, a pair of lace shoes, a pink cotton undershirt, dark stockings, and a torn white chemise. Feeling uncomfortable about the immodesty of the scene, the policeman took some clothing from the chair and covered the body before going to alert police headquarters. Nora Fuller had been murdered. Her purse, left behind on the chair, contained a key to the front door of her home on Fulton Street. Strangely, the postcard detailing her meeting with Mr. Bennett was missing. It was Nora's mother who informed the police about the note. That night, Nora's body was taken to the morgue for an autopsy, while the police began their investigation to track down her killer. Detectives reached out to individuals and visited businesses from the Tenderloin to Mission Street. At the popular restaurant, the owner's son described the man who had been waiting for a young girl on January 11th as approximately 40 years old, 5 feet 8 inches tall, and weighing around 160 pounds. He had a brown mustache, was well-dressed, and appeared refined. Salespeople at both furniture stores provided the same description of a man who purchased bedding and other items for 2211 Sutter Street. The police concluded that John Bennett and C.B. Hawkins were likely the same person. While they now had a suspect's description, it did not bring them any closer to finding Nora Fuller's killer. As investigators followed leads, they returned to the little house on Sutter Street. Detectives revisited the crime scene to search for clues. They examined mail addressed to C.B. Hawkins, John Bennett at the Golden West Hotel in Sutter Street, but none revealed his whereabouts. A search of the house uncovered a cigar butt in the room where Nora was found and a receipt from the furniture store for the bedding tucked away on a shelf in the back of the bedroom closet. Although fingerprint identification had been used in Argentina since 1892, it wouldn't be until a few years later that U.S. police forces began to adopt this forensic technology. As detectives continued their search, they noted that the fireplaces showed no signs of use, and there were no papers or indications that anyone had eaten in the house. Police checked with the San Francisco Utility Company, but found no record of an application for water or gas for 2211 Sutter Street. Neighbors reported that they hadn't seen anyone enter or leave the house between January 11th and February 8th. 4 days after Nora's body was discovered, her mother visited the morgue and confirmed her identity by pointing out a vaccination mark on Nora's left leg. Mrs. Fuller was then given a brief tour of the house where her daughter had died. Coroner Dr. Bacigalupi announced that the autopsy revealed Nora had been strangled. Dr. Charles Morgan examined the contents of her stomach and found traces of alcohol, indicating she was unaccustomed to drinking. He estimated that she had died 1 or 2 hours after eating an apple, suggesting she was murdered on the evening of January 11th, just hours after she left home for the last time. An inquest was held to investigate the circumstances of the teenager's death. Her friend, 17-year-old Madge Graham, testified that Nora often spoke of a friend named Bennett. Graham speculated that the job advertisement in the San Francisco Chronicle was merely a ruse to deceive Mrs. Fuller. She claimed that Mrs. Fuller was strict, and Nora sometimes had to leave the house to make phone calls to some man without her mother's knowledge. Graham recounted that Nora had once asked her to say they were going to the theater together as a cover for meeting someone. Although Nora had a reputation as a devoted daughter, few believed the story of her secret phone calls and meetings. The investigation was led by Police Captain John Seymour, who sought additional clues. A reward of $5,000 was offered for information leading to the arrest of the perpetrator, resulting in a flood of tips. The police wanted to return Nora's personal belongings to her family, but those items had vanished, taken by scavengers looking for souvenirs. Handwriting expert Theodore Kitka was enlisted to sift through change of address cards at the post office, hoping to find a match for the handwriting of the elusive Mr. Hawkins on the lease he signed for the house. Kitka examined 32,000 cards and identified 3 with similar writing. One of those was from someone requesting a change of address from San Francisco to Kansas City. Though it seemed like a long shot, Captain Seymour wanted to explore every lead. He took the train to Missouri to interview the bewildered man, only to find he had no connection to Nora Fuller's death. While Seymour was in Kansas City, another lead emerged. San Francisco newspapers had reported on January 18th about the disappearance of a clerk named Charles B. Hadley, who had worked at the San Francisco Examiner and whose accounts had been found short. A detective learned that he had been living at a hotel on Ellis Street with a young woman named Ollie Blazier. When questioned, Blazier said Hadley had walked out on her, leaving her in the dark about his whereabouts. The following day, newspapers published copies of the Hawkins signature from the lease with Umsen and Company. Blazier thought it resembled Hadley's signature on a photo he had given her, prompting her to bring both to police headquarters. Kitka compared the two and found them identical. However, there was one issue. Hadley was clean-shaven, while Hawkins was not. Blazier explained that Hadley owned a collection of false mustaches that he sometimes wore. Kitka digitally altered the photo of Hadley to add a mustache and a silk top hat, then showed it to everyone who had seen Bennett or Hawkins. Most agreed it resembled the man they had encountered, except the restaurant owner. Convinced that Bennett, Hawkins, and Hadley were the same person, Seymour received information from Minneapolis that Hadley was actually Charles Start, wanted for embezzlement since 1889. The detective printed and distributed thousands of circulars regarding the suspect in Nora Fuller's murder, but no clues emerged. The man with many aliases remained elusive, and Nora Fuller's killer was never found.